In 1941, a tiny ski hill just outside of Los Angeles called the Waterman Ski Lifts had just installed the second ever chairlift in California. It was opening day, and guests were eagerly awaiting the thrill of skiing the expert trails on the face of the hill. But then, the chairlift broke down. Skiers had to be evacuated, and some even had to jump off the chairlift. It seemed like a fluke, a stroke of bad luck. But little did anyone know at that time. But this unfortunate event foreshadowed the many struggles Mount Waterman would face in the next 80 years of its incredible history. In 1939, Lynn Newcomb Sr. installed the first ever rope tow at Mount Waterman, jumping on top of a rapidly growing trend of Southern California ski clubs, pioneered by Blue Ridge and Snow Valley, who had both installed rope tows 2 years prior in 1937. By the late 1940s and early 1950s, skiing in Southern California was in full swing, with every prominent ski area, including Mountain High, then known as Blue Ridge/Holiday Hill, Mount Baldy, Mount Waterman, and all three resorts now operated by Big Bear having installed at least single chairlifts. And Mountain Baldy, which at the time were actually ahead of everyone else's technology for once, had installed multiple double chairlifts, which would obviously get replaced years later because it's simply not safe or reliable to operate a ski area on a 75-year-old chairlift. Anyways, all of the Southern California ski areas were starting to transition from small ski clubs to larger, more public hills, and Mount Waterman was at the center of it all, seeing as it was the closest to Los Angeles and also boasted the unique Waterman Village, complete with a warming hut, bathrooms, and, did I mention the warming hut? All in all, everything was going swimmingly for Mount Waterman. And then the 1960s came.
The golden era of Mount Waterman skiing, from the late 1960s through the 90s, was a 3-decade-long span of decent to great winters, with the mountain opening its lifts every year in that period. The fantastic winter of 1969 brought record snowfall, which translated to lots of skiers and lots of money. Well, lots by Waterman standards, a few $100 at least. The mountain used its newly earned capital to replace the by-then rickety single chair with a shiny new double chair in 1972. A decade later, they added Chair 3, aptly named because that's exactly how many previously inaccessible acres it unlocked. 3. Yeah, I don't really know what they were thinking there either. No Name Trail and Roxy's Run and the upper 3/4 of Ram's Revenge are all directly lappable via a short cat track and a ride-up Chair 2. With financial decisions like this, I'm starting to see what caused Waterman's downfall in the ensuing decades. Nonetheless, with good snow and consistent operations, Angelino skiers were spoiled throughout this period, being able to ski to their heart's desires without having to worry about droughts, fires, or understaffing.
Speaking of that downfall you all clicked on the video for, now we're going to talk about it. After a couple of poor snowfall years near the end of the 1900s and family ownership for many decades, Lynn Newcomb Jr. was ready for a change. And so in came Vail Resorts to buy Barry and Gregory Stubberfield of Angeles Crest Resorts, ACR for short, who had also owned the nearby Kratka Ridge at the time and wanted to revive the mid-70s feel of SoCal skiing. However, they failed absolutely miserably. After 2 poor snowfall years during which neither ski area was able to open, they sold Waterman and Kratka back to Lynn Newcomb Jr. After the sale back, Mount Waterman and skiing off the 2 freeway as a whole was pretty much dead, and Lynn Newcomb Jr. had no intent of really doing anything after spending all of that money. And so Waterman remained closed for 5 more seasons until 2006, where it was still closed, but a new owner, Rick Metcalf, bought the ski area and decided to finally revive it from the dead. Mount Waterman reopened for the first time in 7 years in 2008, and things were finally looking up for good old Mount Waterman, and they would surely stay that way, right?
Waterman skiing in the 2010s and 2020s is a story of inconsistency, shady dealings, tragedy, and at times bliss. Between 2010 and 2015, Waterman opened one time, the Southern California drought being mostly to blame. The 2015 through 2019 seasons were the most consistent time period for Mount Waterman in the post-millennium era, with relatively consistent weekend openings each season. In 2020, during the Bobcat fire, the entire mountain was almost burned down, ruining the phone lines. This was the go-to excuse Waterman would make for not operating up until 2024, when they opened for the first time in 5 years. Finally, after seasons and seasons of Waterman suffering not enough snow, too much snow, broken phone lines, closed access road, understaffing, and more, they decided to spin chairs 1 and 2 on weekends for about a month. This seemed like a promising sign for the future of Mount Waterman, but as it turns out, they were probably just showing off that their lifts actually do work to make the mountain as attractive as an offer as possible. That's right. The longtime Waterman owners, the Metcalfs, were selling the resort for $2 million. It was uncertain whether the change in ownership would be good or bad for Waterman's dedicated skiers, with the new Waterman 100 group promising crazy plans like heli skiing, extensive snowmaking, and a luxury experience, the antithesis of the traditional Mount Waterman skiing. In the short term, all that transpired from the transaction was an even less updated website, and trust me, the Metcalfs barely touched the thing. That brings us to today, early 2026. The intense rainfall we had in December completely decimated the 2 highway, Waterman's access road. With Caltrans being the unreliable, slow government entity that it is, it will probably take upwards of 4 years to fully repair the road, if it ever even happens. Additionally, the rains destabilized Chair 1's counterweight, causing a detensioning, so the future of Mount Waterman is murky at best. With Caltrans's and Waterman's history of taking forever to repair things, Los Angeles skiers should not hold their breaths for a grand reopening.